A scion of many worlds. Lady Allure scans over the valley with her 4 eyes as she soars overhead. She had come to peace with what she had to do. Perhaps if Lacron was not always screaming to rip itself asunder with war, then they could let him be. But if you carry your wishes upon one wing and reality on the other, you will lose all sense of balance. The valley has many forges and fires burning. Its position between many mountains means that it's actually subject to different seasons than the land surrounding them. Now is the dry time, the time of burning, so that the ashes of scrub, grass, and bush could nurture life anew next harvest season. It also carried up the winds and rendered entire days of flight effortless. She could almost nap on the wing, even in full armor. Still, there's a large amount of flight into the valley, and none of them look like Urthani. There had been some Metak, and a few of them were even from one of the mountain clans. Magrika was not among them. A fair amount of Erumenta are plying their trades during this season of fire, particularly several ice Erumenta who are offering treats of fruit juice and crushed ice. She personally liked the tart orbs. Sure, they weren't the most popular, but that always meant there was plenty to be had and for a fair price as well. She had made excellent time getting here with a squadron and had already spoken to the stubborn, stupid, and to be frank, senseless star seekers. She could understand seeking answers and ways to better your life. She could appreciate their ability to predict the weather and willingness to help the surrounding kingdoms with their harvests, and their sheer duty where they warn of monsters rising up was nothing short of inspired. But their heads were somewhere up in the stars themselves, because these women were oblivious and just plain stupid. She had explained the danger, explained it many times without giving things away. A rogue midwife willing and capable of training others. She had explained the sheer amount of war and instability such a thing would bring about and the appalling level of bloodshed. The airy idiots had only nodded and agreed to let her and her warriors patrol the valley. How this order could be so wise and so foolish at the same time utterly baffled her. Another of her warriors rises up on the warm air and throws her a salute, relieving her of her patrol. She begins a gentle circular dive and swoops down to the small collection of tents that she and her women had set up. She lands gently and fluffs out her wings before tucking them in nice and tight under her cape. She readjusts her sword for walking as opposed to flying, and begins to stretch her legs a little. The rains have stalled out Jasper and Magrika. If it's the burning loins, then she's going to be spherical. She's going to be so pregnant, she tells herself as she untucks her braided hair and shakes her head. All right, girls. You did good, and I've got some money to burn after those beast bones sold so well. You've done me proud today, and you're getting a treat. Jasper's voice sounds out, and Allure's jaw drops in incredulous bafflement. Feeling as if she's in a daze, she walks towards the source of the sound to find her quarry with his proboscis in a large fruit as around him 6 exhausted-looking water Erumenta and Magrika, the massive, are all drinking crushed ice treats. All around the 8 of them are massive packs filled with stones and facsimiles of weapons with further stones tied to them for extra weight. You! What? How did you get into the valley without being seen? We have eyes in the sky. We know everyone that comes into and out of the valley. You girls clearly haven't been keeping watch at night. We've been here for 2 days now. Magrika notes as she shovels flavored ice into her mouth with her fingers. What? 2 days. We have an appointment later today to speak with the elders, Jasper says after withdrawing his proboscis from his fruit. He gives it a little shake and then stabs it again. Do you have any idea of the damage you're going to cause the world? Wait, what's Sergeant Blue going to do? One of the Erumenta asks, and Allure looks towards them in confusion. Who are you girls and what are you doing? I'm Lena. Sergeant Blue was someone we were planning on robbing, and then he drafted us into the Undaunted. He what? He beat these girls so hard that they can't even think about fighting back. He let them attack him at once, fixed their gear before the fight, outright started teaching them as they tried to hurt him, and made a complete mockery of them. They used the strength of water, numbers and steel to no avail, so now he's teaching them to be warriors, proper warriors, warriors worthy of being sworn in to his own people of the Undaunted, Magrica says, and Lady Allure looks all over them and then recognizes it all at a second glance. Endurance training, a punishing, brutal routine designed to force out strength from even the frailest form. He's also clearly been carrying the largest, heaviest load of the lot, possibly as much as any two combined. He's also a swirling hole in the local power field. He's just drinking things in and doing something to his body, something that he's clearly been up to for a long time as his arms and chest have expanded enormously. There are hints of cracks along his claws now that she's really looking, and he's clearly been forcing himself to fight an enormous amount. There's a cracking sound as the fruit he's drinking from caves in on itself, and he keeps pulling until it's a small, wrinkled bit of brittle plant matter. "Is there a reason you're staring?" Jasper asks with a mildly amused trill in his voice. He clearly knows why she's staring, but wants it said out loud. "How much fighting have you been doing?" she asks, and he shrugs. 4 times daily since coming here. 22 with one-on-one training sessions and 25 with group training sessions as well. He's been outright beating competence into these girls. It's kind of scary to see, honestly. Magrica adds in with a grin before Jasper chuckles and then bites the shriveled and dried remains of the fruit. It crunches between his jaws, which is not supposed to be able to do that. Lady Allure watches in awe and horror as Jasper quickly eats the entire fruit, something that an Earthani should not be capable of doing. "Waste not, want not," he says calmly, even as the sheer amount of power he's drinking in from the area around him focuses more on his throat and stomach to accommodate the thing he should not have eaten. "Do you eat rocks as well?" That's about all he doesn't eat. Magrica taunts, and Jasper looks at her with a grin before turning back to Allure. To be fair, when the fluids are all gone, most foods are basically either jerky or crackers, and both of those are tasty enough, Jasper remarks with a shrug. "So, are we going to be fighting again? I'll give you the same odds that I gave to my new recruits. You and all your friends with time to plan and all the power you can bring in, against me." "What? That's absurd, not—" She catches herself and coughs into her fist. "I have to ask you to come with me. You're a danger to the stability of the world, as is any woman you've impregnated." Stability? Can the world really be called stable if it's only a single step away from eating itself alive in the fires of war at even the best of times? Jasper asks, and she frowns at him. Or is it even stability? As horrific as war can be, it is at times needed. Like the season of fire in this valley, there is a time when destruction is needed and is in fact the greatest thing for a place. He gestures out to the plumes of smoke rising all around them. From destruction comes new life and creation. Sometimes it must be applied to entire societies. "That's a bit much, big man," Magrica notes, and he sighs. "The problem is that without the threat of extinction over their heads, almost every nation would do so. We don't have to force war. We just have to remove the only bit of mutually assured destruction, and the world eats itself alive." "So you're aware of the danger, and you don't care." "I do care. The problem is that there was a point where things could be resolved without an obscene loss of life. That was past long ago." "No, that can't be." Imagine bloodlust and a desire for war as akin to food. It passing from the stomach to be digested and then excreted is the war working itself out and the unpleasantness at the end. Your order in its relentless desire for peace has gotten in the way of this process. War may be terrible, but it drives things forward. It brings needed change and it shifts things, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. That's simply not true, isn't it? In the early days of Lakran, there was no need for paladins and knights of the Grand Midwives. There were simply small churches of knowledge dedicated to keeping civilization alive. You advocated for peace, and that's not a bad thing, but you were forced to take control in order to ensure it. The problems continued and continued, with no way for nations of people to express their feelings properly or even vent them, and the anger turned to hatred, which became a poison, one that may destroy the world. And what would you have done? Stayed out of it. The Grand Midwives are bringers of life. That should be where it began and ended. If you wanted to really push, then you should have pushed for rules of war. No slaughter of the civilians, no salting fields, and no burning of precious temples, libraries, and storehouses. That way, hatred would not be able to build, and the worst excesses would have been curbed. Why libraries? One of the Aramenta asks, having finished her chilled treat. Knowledge can serve and save many. Ways to treat injuries, cure diseases, grant greater harvests. All these things can be collected and immortalized in libraries, Jasper says, and Lady Allure just looks at him oddly. So do you want war or not? It's not that I want slaughter and death. It's just that it's inevitable. At least it's inevitable without outside intervention, and even then it's going to be bad. Explain yourself. Her job is to keep the peace on Lakran. If he can not only see a great danger but a way out, then she's obligated above mere orders to listen. With every moment that passes, there's another chance that some traitor in the Grand Midwives gives out the secret of ceding life to a nation, which then goes to war without fear of consequences. Or perhaps a midwife gets captured and the secret's tortured out of her. There are many ways to tear information from the minds of the unwilling. The moment this happens, the building pressure to do war will overflow and we will all be washed away. Mixing your metaphors? Magrica taunts him and he glances at her before smirking, figuring out better ones when they're too late. Imagine a war as a small flood, dangerous and destructive, but you can dam it off. But if you only dam it off and never release the sheer amount of water, then it will eventually overflow and sweep away entire cities. I understand, Lady Allure says as she thinks. Do you really believe that we've been compromised? That there are spies and traitors among the midwives? It shocks me to my core whenever I'm reminded that your secrets aren't already stolen. It's nothing short of a miracle that they don't already lie in the hands of the more active warmongers on the planet, but miracles can't hold out forever. Even gods can make mistakes, and miracle can fail. Which means there's no way I can convince you to come back with me. Wait till I've made contact with my own people and I'll go with you willingly. At first, I only sought to escape and find answers. I've now realized just how much this world needs help. Let me help, please. So you have been scheming, Magrica asks. The midwives are right in that the world seems to be on the brink of war, but they don't have any answer to it. If I can get them to throw their lot in with the rest of the undaunted when they arrive, then the whole world wins. Why go for the little victory when you can get the biggest one imaginable? So your eyes are on the biggest possible prize? Why stop at the world saved? Why not conquer it? Magrica asks, and Jasper taps his chin a few times and visibly considers it. If I have to. If things get really bad and communication is clearly out the window, then yes, as aggravating and tedious as it will be, he says, and Lady Allure reaches for her sword. Oh, are we fighting? You're planning on conquering the world. Of course we're fighting. She snarls and he shrugs. I plan many things, much like how some part of you is currently planning how best to seduce me and have a son of your own just to see what would happen. Maybe you'd be canonized as a saint of the Grand Midwives. Maybe you would start an entirely new portion of your religion and slowly bring the world into balance, Jasper says out loud in a considering tone. Of course. It could also turn you apostate and make you an enemy of the... I would never, she exclaims, drawing her sword and pointing it at him. "You are coming with me now. No more games, no more words, no more running," she says, and he huffs a bit as he lets the last few bits of his weights drop. His entire pile makes a smacking noise as he reveals that he was in fact holding the entire thing up still. He moves his neck oddly and cracks it, something Urthani cannot do. "Magrica, keep the girls out of trouble, please. I have a theological debate," Jasper says, and Lady Aelur blasts forward with an enormous tearing at the energy around her. His claws parry the brutally fast sword, and he feels them crack as he allows the blow to carry him backwards to bleed away the momentum. He dodges twice more. She's not uncertain this time. She's not looking to bring something precious in. She's pissed off and out for blood. She then stabs and he collects all the kinetic energy and allows himself to fly backwards. "Follow me." His taunt is on the money, as she pursues without pausing for a second. Yet she still has the focus to bring out a horn and let out a call that bugles out over the entire valley. Her entire force converge on her location, even as Jasper takes the gap in time to heal his claws and reinforce them a touch. Now that they're in the air, though, there's less chance of some poor soul being caught up in the madness. Her sword rings out as he bats it away with his claws. There are nearly a dozen other women, all with swords and all coming in hard, diving at him. Some propel themselves with axiom, but all dive either upwards or downwards. He flickers away in a teleport. What is this race called again? Somali, Saramali, Screechy? Something he should probably ask. He pours the power into his speed and reflexes, into his perception of time. The quickly reorienting winged women seem to be moving through molasses to him as he casually drifts out of reach. One of the ones that dove in from above rights herself first and comes in fast, even by Jasper's perception. Then she starts to swing, and it's so much slower than the rush-up. Clearly, she thought she had him off balance. A swat with his claw, and not only is her grip on her sword suddenly loose and uncertain, but there's a flaw revealed as a tiny crack shows itself. The sword must not have been properly tempered, or perhaps the iron was impure. Either way, it won't survive many more blows. "So, what's your species called again?" "It evades me at the moment," he asks as she tries to readjust her grip and all four of her eyes blink. "What?" she demands as she gets her grip back and takes another swing, only for him to smack away the sword. The crack widens ever so slightly. "What is your species called?" "I can't remember," Jasper remarks calmly. To his own ears he spoke rather slowly, but maybe he's speaking too fast. How could any Cretan forget the Saramali? She screeches at him in a nearly psychotic fury. Her next swing is bad enough that he outright snaps her sword in half as he deflects along the crack upon it, and the iron blade goes flying. He dashes back in mid-air and grabs the blade and reshapes it to form a gauntlet around his right hand to protect the meteor bits of his palm. It'll also give his punch a little something more. "All right, that's you done. Take a hike." He orders the shocked warrior as he points away. He then drops out of the sky a little to dodge a small force of incoming. They dive after him and then grow confused as he's suddenly gone and pull up to begin scanning the valley below. "He's making a mockery of us," Lady Aelur screams in range as she slams into Jasper as he hovers above the small group. There's a definite clang as he catches the sword in his gauntleted hand and then reshapes the metal around his left hand to form another gauntlet and take away her sword. "You vile vandal!" Her responding kick is empowered with enough axiom that Jasper's forced to let his wings go limp or possible damage them, which is fine. He easily rights himself and uses his lower wings and limp upper wings to steer the massive dive. She gives chase and he reinforces and pulls out his wings at the last second to see if she would crash into the ground. No luck. She's been flying longer than he has. "Vandal, all I did was remove a deadly weapon from a fool looking for a fight. The moment you heard something you didn't like, you just jumped to conclusions and attacked. Jasper hollers over his shoulder at her as they swoop upwards and beyond the main temple. The sudden aggression was insane. His offer of going with her after he was done with the Star Seekers was more than fair in his opinion. It was literally a win-win scenario. You're planning on attacking and possibly destroying this world. I cannot let that happen. My God, woman, you're making Olympian leaps of logic. Besides, didn't you hear me? Only if I have to, and I bemoaned how annoying such a thing would be. Best case scenario, my people come for me, and they get the smarter sorts to start helping out this world. I want off Lacron. I don't want to rule it. If you wish to leave this world, then I can oblige. Lady Ailur growls at him, and he rolls his eyes at the cheesy line. Okay, he's clearly hit some mental switch on the idiot that put her in crusade mode, which all told is more than a little messed up, but it leaves him with the question of how to turn it off. He catches a punch and lets her face come close to his as he tries to decipher the pure crazy that's spilling out. There's a hint of this being unnatural in her aura, as if it clicks. He grabs her fist and spins to throw her away. She really doesn't want to do this and set herself some rules. Rules on when she would attack, and when she started, she wouldn't stop. A rule he'd broken somewhere, and now she was just flat out going to kill him. A few of his fellow soldiers were much the same. People that would only let themselves do something if a certain condition were set, then obsessively chasing it if it was met. Which meant he had to knock her out for the stupid to stop. If not outright kill her, but killing a high-ranking knight of the Grand Midwives was probably a one-way ticket to having a world-spanning organization hate him more. Hate him more. There's a flicker of something at the extreme range of his antenna's senses, and he turns to see something small harassing the ever-loving hell out of the other warriors, leaving this one for him. Thank you, Magrica. He notes with a grin before dodging away from a furious charge. Unfortunately, Ailur is a lot more agile, and she's on him in a moment with a barrage of punches and a lot of work trying to keep a dagger at bay. She's out for blood, death, and doom. An axiom-enhanced punch to her stomach doubles her over, but she then lets out a burst of power that slams into him, and he focuses to teleport away. A lot of the momentum is preserved as he skids to a stop, his claws skittering along the cobbles within the temple. What are you doing? What's going on? Why are you bleeding? A nearby Great Plains Nagasha sister of the Star Seekers demands in shock. I've apparently angered another warrior past the point of reason. If I hold her still, would you be willing to try and talk, or maybe shout some sense into her? Shouting at people rarely helps them find their senses. Yes, but having the reasonable person injured doesn't help much either, Jasper says as he feels his injury knit itself back together. The shockwave had been shockingly sharp and had lacerated both his palms as he tried to literally catch it with the aid of the gauntlets he had made out of his enemy's swords. Now there was a slight blue tinge to his fur around the metal. It still somewhat disturbed him to know he was literally blue-blooded now, or rather blue-green-blooded. He didn't know the exact details, but he was sure that copper rather than iron was the oxygen-carrying agent in his veins. Who's trying to kill you and why? The name escapes me, as does her excuse, but I truly do not know why she wants to hurt me. I was actually agreeing to most everything she wanted from me, and only asked that I be allowed to finish my business with your order. Jasper is cut off as Lady Ailur warps in, having apparently been paying attention as she fought him, and slams into him. He deflects a few punches before she slams her head into his face, grabs him, and he feels the axiom around him twist and shift as she forces a teleport on him. He tries to focus, but the slight daze from the headbutt gives her the time to stop it, and he's suddenly somewhere else and staggering to a stop, right in front of an enormous black mirror with an elegant black frame. The frame shows a relief of many creatures fighting identical clones of each other. He has no reflection in the mirror. A mirror that doesn't have a brass frame, but a Kutha frame. A Kutha frame that suddenly erupts with power, and he flinches away and then looks around to see what the hell happened. The mirror is gone. The world is gone. He is in darkness. The darkness pulls away and he's facing the mirror again. This time he has a reflection, but the frame is backwards. What is going on? That's when his reflection jumps out and attacks him.